9.1 Graphs of sine and cosine practice solutions. For this first part here, we're asked to identify whether the function is periodic, and if it is, to give the period. So if we look at example 2, this function is actually periodic because this entire thing is the period. Hold on one second. This up to here is the period. So from there, it would repeat itself, and it looks exactly the same, so this is periodic. Now, how much of a period do we have? This is going from -5 to 0, so that period is 5. So number 2 is periodic, and the period is 5. Number 3, though, is not periodic. So if we look here, this is where the line would restart, and it doesn't form the same line here. Hold on. This is where it would start, and as it goes back up again, it does not. This does not match the first one. So this is not periodic. For 4, 5, and 6, we're using f of x is equal to sine x, or f of x is equal to cosine x, to guide as a guide and graphing each function and identifying the amplitude and the period. So remember, the amplitude is found by taking the absolute value of a, and your period is found by taking 2 pi over the absolute value of b. So for example 4, we have f of x is equal to 2 sine 1/2 x. So our amplitude, we are going to get by taking the absolute value of a, which is the absolute value of 2, which is 2. This 2 is a, the 1/2 is your b. Your period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, which is 2 pi over 1/2. So that's 2 pi times the reciprocal of the 1/2, which is 2, which is 4 pi. So we're graphing sine, so we're going to start on the origin. Our period is 4 pi, so our ending point of this period or this cycle is going to be 4 pi. Half of that is 2 pi. And then if you look here, we have a positive 2 pi. Our amplitude is 2, so we are going to go up 2 in the middle of first in the middle point, and then down 2 in the middle of the middle point and the last for this cycle or this period. So our graph or our line is going to look like this. We are going to duplicate this and continue our line, draw an arrow at the end of it, and then do the same on the other side. So this is going to be, this is going to look like this. And then we're done. For 5, we have h of x is equal to 1/4 cosine x. So our amplitude is the absolute value of that 1/4, which is 1/4. The cosine x means cosine 1 times x, so that 1 is your b. So our period is 2 pi over the absolute value of 1, which is just 2 pi. We are going to start at your amplitude, which is 1/4. So we're going to go up to about 1/4, and then our 2 pi would end our cycle or our period, so our last point would be there. Halfway between there is pi, so we would go down 1/4, and that would be our period. We're going to do the same thing. Oops. And continue this throughout your entire graph. do the same on the other side. For 6, we are given k of x is equal to sine pi x. So our a is 1, our b is the pi. So our amplitude is the absolute value of 1, which is just 1. And then your period is the 2 pi over pi, the absolute value of pi, which is just 2 pi over pi, which is 2. So we're dealing with sine. We're going to start at our origin. It's positive, so no reflection. Our last point is going to be at 2 for this period. And then we are going to have our middle point go up to 1 in between those two, and then down to 1 in between these. So it's going to look like this. So we're just going to duplicate this, up, down, duplicate it, up, down. Same with on the other side, but go down and then up. So we're going to have a line that looks like this. For 25 through 28, we are asked to determine the amplitude and the period for each function and then describe the transformations from the parent function. So for 25, we are given f of x is equal to sine x plus pi over 4 minus 1. So for this one, our a is 1, our b is 1, and then our c is that pi over 4, so we'll use c over b for our shift, and then we have that minus 1, which just means that we're going down 1. So if a is 1, our amplitude is 1. Remember, it's the absolute value of a, which is the absolute value of 1, so that's 1. Our period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, so that's 2 pi over the absolute value of 1, which is just 2 pi. For our shift, remember we're doing c divided by b, so our c is negative pi over 4, all over 1, which was b, so it's just negative pi over 4. And remember, this means that we are going to the left pi over 4 units. And then lastly, that minus 1 just means that we are going down 1 unit. So we have an amplitude of 1, a period of 2 pi, our our horizontal shift, so our phase shift is left pi over 4 units, and then we are going down 1 unit for our vertical shift. For 26, we have h of x is equal to 3/4 cosine pi over 4x. So our a is this 3/4. Our b is the pi over 4. So our amplitude is our absolute value of a, which is the absolute value of 3/4, which is just 3/4. Our period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, so that's 2 pi over the absolute value of pi over 4. So 2 pi over 1 times the reciprocal, that's 4 over pi. So those pi's are going to cancel, and 2 times 4 is 8. Other than that, we do not have a phase shift nor a vertical shift, so we just need to represent that our amplitude is 3/4 and our period is 8. For 27, we have h of x is equal to cosine 2 pi x minus 2. So here, our a is that 1, our b is the 2 pi, and then we don't have a c, but we have a downward shift of 2 units to finish this. So our amplitude is the absolute value of a, which is the absolute value of 1, which is 1. Our period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, So that's 2 pi over 2 pi, which is 1. Our phase shift, we don't have 1, so we don't have a c. And then your -2 just means that we are going down 2 units. So our amplitude is 1, our period is 1, and down 2 units. For 28, we have j of x is equal to -3 sine 3x. So our a is -3, our b is 3. We don't have a c, and we don't have a vertical shift either. So our amplitude is the absolute value of the a, which is the absolute value of -3, which is just 3. Our period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b, so that's 2 pi over the absolute value of 3, which is just 2 pi over 3. And then you don't have anything else going on, so your amplitude is 3, and your period is 2 pi over 3.